Horror games are great. Some of what a lot of people consider to be some of the best video games ever made are horror games. But I'm a big fan of horror in games. Now I say horror in games specifically because when a game that is not typically a horror game sets foot into the horror genre, I kinda lean forward in my seat a little bit. Now I love when this happens, not just because it shakes up the tone of a game, but when a game shifts into horror mode, it kind of creates room for a very specific feeling that I've picked up on. I want to try to explain what this feeling is, and to do that, I need to go back to the first time that I remember experiencing it, playing Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 is set in the near future in the Eastern European but otherwise geographically ambiguous City 17, sometime after Earth has been completely conquered by an interdimensional faction of aliens called the Combine. After being on the run from Combine forces for the first third or so of the game, you finally meet up with your Black Mesa scientist buddies from Half-Life 1. Eli over here tries to set you up with his daughter, Alex, and sends her to take you on a tour of the facility that everybody is operating out of now. But when you're taking a tour of this facility, you pass a dimly lit hallway and Alex says,
"That's the old passage to Ravenholm. We don't go there anymore."
Not ominous at all. The tour continues nonetheless, and she gives you a gravity gun, which is still the coolest weapon in any video game ever made, and takes you outside to use it to play catch with her dog, who, despite being a very good boy, is not actually a dog at all. While you're outside playing catch with dog, that's his name, the Combine come knocking, and you're forced to evacuate as the facility you're hiding out in is under attack. But naturally, of course, the tunnel collapses between you and Alex, and it looks like you have to take a detour through Ravenholm by yourself. This level, called We Don't Go to Ravenholm, is set in an abandoned mining town that has been shelled by the Combine, a process that releases headcrabs into the city which latch onto their victims' heads and control them. And fun fact, it is canon that a headcrab's host is both still alive and at least partially conscious. So that's fun. Now, these headcrab zombies have popped up a few times in the preceding levels in Half-Life 2, but for the first and I think only time in the game so far, the headcrab zombie family of enemies is the only enemies that you'll find in Ravenholm. On top of the whole, parasitic zombie problem going on, it's now the dead of night because time has passed, and the town is filled with all sorts of gore, viscera, and literal death traps left behind by the only other person in town, who has clearly snapped at some point. We Don't Go to Ravenholm is a straight-up horror level in a game that is not generally considered a horror game, and I love it for that. I think it's maybe the best part of the game. The build-up of tension into the level is fantastic, and not only is it proof of gravity gun superiority, how many other games will let you punt dressers at zombies? But it also ups the stakes by showing you just how dangerous the Combine can be. We've seen how oppressive they can be in major metropolitan areas like City 17, and we hear secondhand about how they've children of men to the entire human race. But Ravenholm shows that they are unafraid to use biological weapons like headcrabs to wipe resistance bases like Ravenholm and Black Mesa off the map. This effectively ups the stakes for the rest of the game as you become a borderline messianic figure for the Resistance. But perhaps my favorite part of Ravenholm and the inspiration for this whole video is how great it feels to leave Ravenholm. I'm not kidding, it's not just because it's scary or because the fast zombies kept 10-year-old Matthew up at night. Leaving feels great. There is a literal light at the end of the tunnel and also a loading screen. You get up there and you're almost glad to be fighting Combine soldiers again. There are real people here who are alive. It feels great. Half-Life 2 drops you into this straight-up horror level out of nowhere and makes you fight your way back out. And it's this feeling of fighting your way out that I love so much. It's like they chuck you into the deep end of a pool and you need to come back up for air. They make you fight to survive for warmth, for sunlight, for companionship, for other people. And I love that. It's this sense of kind of hard-won relief and triumph, and it's something that I think Half-Life 2 does exceptionally well with We Don't Go to Ravenholm. But I think there's definitely other examples out there, like The Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time has kind of a rug pull partway through. The game starts off cheerily enough, but things take a bit of a turn when Link finally gets his hands on the Master Sword. Pulling the sword out of the stone freezes Link in time for 7 years, and while he's away, Ganondorf has completely overthrown and ruined the entire Kingdom of Hyrule. From here on out, Ocarina of Time is honestly pretty bleak, at least by Nintendo standards. But somewhere along development, the folks at Nintendo must have challenged themselves to see how far they could push an E rating. When you return to the once peaceful Kakariko village, you find that it's on fire now, and a demon has been released from the bottom of the well. You've got to go down there and fight this thing to get the tools you need to fight the demon, who, by the way, has fled to the Shadow Temple, and you've got to go down there and kill it, because that's what heroes do. The Shadow Temple lives up to its name. It's filled with some of the creepiest enemies in the Zelda series. It's dark, there's blood smeared on the walls, and someone left their torture devices everywhere. There's also some lore implications about what this place was used for, and I'll remind you that this game is rated E, somehow. While the back section of Ocarina of Time has its downer moments for sure, like, entering Castle Town for the first time and finding that it's ruined and overrun by zombies with personal boundary issues, the Shadow Temple hits a new low, not just for the game, but maybe for the Zelda series as a whole. But I think it's interesting that after you beat the Shadow Temple, things honestly don't get a whole lot better for Kakariko Village, even if it is a step towards your bigger goal of saving the Kingdom of Hyrule. At least in Half-Life 2, when you're leaving Ravenholm, there's a light at the end of the tunnel and things start snowballing in your favor in the plot. But the tone and atmosphere of the Shadow Temple is so oppressive that walking back out into a literal graveyard in a post-political upheaval world feels amazing. It's a breath of fresh air. Also, the demon that you fight at the Shadow Temple, scary appearance aside, is named Bongo Bongo, and you fight him on top of a giant bongo, and I think that's pretty funny. The Shadow Temple just goes to show that it doesn't really matter what you're coming back to, as long as the contrast is great enough. If you've got the tone of the game on a scale with 10 being sunshine and rainbows and 0 being the ninth circle of hell, steadily going down to like a 5 feels pretty natural. But when a game goes full hell mode like the Shadow Temple does, it makes clawing your way back to a generally depressing 5 feel pretty great. That's enough of metaphorically plunging you into darkness. How about a game that does it literally? I'm talking about Hollow Knight. If you've played the game, you probably already know exactly what I'm talking about. The first 2 examples I gave of horror in games and your subsequent fight for survival that they put you through have you coming back into civilization, into a world full of life and fresh air and people. Hollow Knight, on the other hand, is already a pretty lonely game. Aside from a handful of friendly bugs scattered throughout the map, you'll spend the bulk of your time exploring this world alone. And the world that you do get to explore is a long-ruined kingdom that's been reclaimed by nature and filled with traps, enemies, and every indie game developer's favorite trope: the corruption. But sooner or later, your quest will lead you to a deep, dark corner of the world called Deepnest. Now, there are 2 ways to get into Deepnest. You can either fight the Mantis Lords for their respect, and they open the front door to Deepnest for you. Or, alternatively, there is a hallway in the fungal wastes that will give way beneath your feet and drop you into Deepnest by surprise. Now, Deepnest is pretty scary no matter what, but getting in that second way, falling in, terrifying. You're not ready for it. There's no prior indication that Deepnest exists, and the game is generally tonally dark, but in like a Tim Burton or Henry Selick kind of way. But Deepnest is a completely different beast. You can't see a thing. There's spiders that crawl across the foreground of the screen. There's something down here stalking you. It's possible to get abducted, and you pretty quickly realize after spending a little bit of time down here that the door the Mantis Lords were guarding wasn't to keep things out of Deepnest. It was to keep the things that are in Deepnest from getting to the rest of the world. Also, I did a whole video about a year or so ago now about the audio design of Deepnest, if you want to watch it after this video is over. The link will be down in the description. The way out of Deepnest is unclear. It's the most oppressive and dangerous area of the game so far, and you're gonna stumble around a lot trying to find your way out. But once you do, unparalleled. You get back up there to Dirtmouth and you almost want to give the elder a little kiss on the forehead, like, feels great. Now, I know that there is a place in Hollow Knight called the Abyss. It's a pit at the bottom of the world where you find the tens of thousands of corpses of others like you who didn't make it. But as unnerving as this whole sequence is, it is technically optional unless you're going for the true final boss of the game, which not everybody will want to do. Hollow Knight has also kind of shown its cards at this point. You're almost ready for it by the time you get there. But Deepnest, on the other hand, catches you off guard fast and early, and unfortunately you do need to navigate through it in order to beat the game in any capacity. And I think that makes it an absolute expert plus level horror segment that makes you earn your relief. Now, these three examples aren't the only ones. There's plenty of games out there with surprise horror segments that make you earn your relief. Metroid Prime's Frindrana Drifts takes a spooky but ultimately action-packed turn. And Resident Evil Village, while a horror game of the fun and campy flavor, does have a short segment that is comparatively very upsetting. Part of the reason that horror and games go hand in hand is because of interactivity. It's what sets them apart from movies. You know, when you're watching Alien, the xenomorph is scary for sure, but when you're playing Alien Isolation, they really make you feel like Ripley. The alien is after you, and you're the one who has to run and hide from it, and that is a completely different feeling. And while both Alien and its video game counterpart are both very effective and scary pieces of horror media, the extra layer of interactivity that video games bring to the table adds a whole nother layer of fear onto an experience. This layer of interactivity that makes horror games sing is also the reason why it feels so great to get through Ravenholm and to emerge from the Shadow Temple and to claw your way out of Deepnest. It is your victory over the challenge that the game has put you through. It's also part of the reason why people love games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring so much. The game put you, the player, into a tense and difficult situation and made you fight your way out. It's something that passive mediums like film and literature can't really do, at least not to this level. And that's what makes this feeling of hard-won triumph or relief so satisfying and one of my favorite feelings in games. My name is Matthew.Wave. Thank you for watching.